Well, thank you, Kelly, and thank you all for being here with us. And I believe I would like to reintroduce him to you because I think that wasn't fair. This gentleman here next to me is what we call an icon. This session is called an icon talk for a reason. For those of you from the media and advertising, communication, digital, probably you know who he is. And for those that don't, he's a man that has created the largest media and comms group in the world. 5 group of networks consolidating 1,400 companies. For over 35 years, he has weathered every disruption in this industry. And he always made a move to go ahead and over the wave that comes facing him. When I first met him 6 months ago in Cannes Lions, it was after me following his career for years. And I invited him, and I really thought he wouldn't come. Not because he's not generous, it's just because he never liked the stage, like many of his counterparts. It wasn't spotlight that he wanted. And I learned from that session that I need to really stress on him to make it and share the lessons of his magnificent career successes with all of us here. So, John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and congratulations. I didn't know what to expect when I was invited. Tourism, didn't understand how it was going to come together, but you have really accomplished quite a bit in bringing public and private industries and people together with tourism at the center of what consumerism is, right? And bringing people in all sorts of industries. So congratulations.
Thank you
very much. And I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. Let me start by saying I took from the conversation we had last night when you said I'm not a fan of success as much as failure because I learned the most from those failures. So that philosophy that you really believe in, I'm sure, have guided you in making decisions throughout your career. And as facing so many challenges and disruptions throughout this professional lifetime of yours, tell us, how did this conviction guide you throughout those decisions? And if there was one thing that you had to unlearn throughout the way, what would that be too?
Sure. I don't embrace failure very easily, so that might be a mischaracterization of something that I said. I follow a philosophy, and this has always worked for me and continues to work for me every day, where whatever I'm approaching, whatever decision I'm about to make or participate in making, I don't fear failure. I basically tell myself that this will be a success. I don't have anyone else's expectations other than what I expect from it to get from making this decision. I also know that I'm making the decision with incomplete information and that this is going to continue. I embrace the fact that there are going to be adjustments. There are going to be changes to the decision I made to improve it. And when I do not achieve what I want to, I take that as a lesson of why. Why didn't I achieve it? And I take every no, more or less, as a maybe, because I know that if I work at it and I really want to accomplish it, I can come back and succeed where I didn't succeed in the past. It's a philosophy, and it frees me up. And I try to encourage it to my executives as well, to not be afraid of making a mistake, of failing. It empowers you to make other decisions that you wouldn't otherwise make if you were afraid that somebody was going to judge the moment or the decision you made. So that's benefited me completely throughout my career, that lack of failure, that rejecting the fact that I could fail. This is really at the base of what I've done. The thing that has to be unlearned, and I've had to unlearn it or learn from it, is that the past is nothing more than an opportunity to observe what's worked in the past, but then apply it to what's coming next. And anyone who gets a little bit too comfortable on why they're successful, why they're in the position they have, using just their past experiences, I think sets themselves up for disappointment. You have to always challenge yourself, look at the marketplace, and learn from your customers, your colleagues, people that you come in contact with. That is essentially the philosophy in which I wake up every morning and go to work. So it's worked so far.
Well, I obviously meant failure as the road to
Oh,
success.
yeah, no. Yes, of
So
course.
your headline
Yeah.
is only success.
That's it. Yep.
So throughout those years in your career, what would you say the toughest decision that you had to take?
Sure. Again, that was self-learning. Probably the most challenging issues that I've faced is how to empower people. How, because I do trust and depend on quite a number of people, and unless you are very clear in terms of what your expectations are, how far you want them to wander in terms of the entitlements they get from being in the position they are, people, you have to be clear. If you're unclear, you'll get exactly what you deserve, disappointment. And that people, empowering people, and being very clear in terms of what you want is key to everything else that follows. Yes, there have been disappointments, setbacks, but they're only opportunities. Again, every no is a maybe. And if you look at it that way, you'll be successful.
Well, I can share my personal experience with that has not been easy either.
No.
Especially at times of uncertainties and at times of challenging the status quo, and you want to innovate and do the undone. Sometimes you don't have the clarity yourself to pass it to your team, and then it becomes a little more challenging to empower them and then reward them.
Sure.
So, but moving on, you also sit at the board of Lincoln, the Lincoln Center, and you're a patron of arts and culture. What's, from your view, the future keeping for us? Are we still gonna go to opera and the opera and watch ballet, or are we gonna be watching humanoids?
Sure. Well, the talent that's involved in the opera, the ballet, theater, can't be replaced by technology. It can be supplemented by gaming and other things that people are very engaged in today. But that human interaction, that feeling that you get sitting in an audience, cannot be replaced. And I don't think technology or any other improvements will ever simply replace that. It's just fascinating. And it's amazing when you look to see the depth of talent and that gets demonstrated and brought to the public through those venues. So I think those will only prosper more, especially if people have increasingly free time, and entertainment is at the core of, I think, human beings in the way that you want to interact with others in the world. So that's never going away from us.
Yeah, I remember going to a theater once, and it was very immersive. Do you think that will grow instead of replacing, human performance, rather enhancing the human experience through immersion, maybe?
I think it'll enhance it. I mean, you see some of this technology, which is simply amazing. If you go to the Sphere in Las Vegas, that is an incredible experience that I can't do justice to in terms of how entertainment and technology comes together to create an experience that is unraveled. There's nothing else like it. And I think that will be a lesson or a milestone that others try to achieve on a more democratic type of basis. So I see it only improving with technology and talent.
So moving to one of your core businesses, advertising, is tech threatening to strip away the human magic in advertising?
There's a thread of it, but I don't believe it will. I think that technology and what it's offering us today will empower great creative minds to differentiate what messages they're trying to do to connect with consumers, to build trust with people. So there's a constant dialogue back and forth. And as we were discussing even last night, you can give everyone on the planet the same technology, and what have you accomplished? How do you then differentiate yourself? It's impossible. Creativity, I think, will continue to it'll take different forms, but it'll continue to provide that difference, which allows brands, people, companies to differentiate themselves in the marketplace and attract themselves to the right people.
I honestly think this was a fantastic line you said to me yesterday. You said AI is going to democratize advanced technology to all.
Right.
Yet again, you need to differentiate your brand, and you're going to need that human creativity. So you also told me about how AI is expected to disrupt your industry from a client service provider point of view. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. If you were to examine my industry, it's closer to a consulting model for many parts of it today.
I'm sure we have a lot of consultants that will that are paid by the hour.
Right, paid by the hour. That is changing very rapidly, and technology is allowing us to change it. In the future, I think that people in my industry will be rewarded only when we achieve the KPIs or the goals that our clients have laid out. So it's going to become more of a performance type of way to get compensated. And I think as we break through that, that will empower even greater forces than are out there today. And it'll also make clients, brands, more comfortable in making the investments that they have to make, because they'll know, not to leave creativity, that there's an ROI associated with their decision. And there's some partner who's going to share that risk, which they have great confidence in themselves. And technology will enable that to occur, because you can't just blast messages to people anymore. You have to create relationships and engage people where they want to be engaged, not where you have something to offer. So.
I can attest to that. As the largest advertiser in Middle East and Arabia, I can say that clarity on performance impact will definitely give us comfort to invest more.
Yep.
So, you are the perfect big agency CEO. I know the audience would love to hear the perspective on where media is really heading and what are the biggest threats media companies must prepare for.
Sure. We're two things. We are by far the biggest, and will be even bigger soon. And that's important from a media point of view. From a creativity point of view, you are big, but you want to remain agile. You want to stay in touch with your customers, with your consumers. You want to not just present the things you want to sell, but you want to listen to them in terms of their objectives and what they want to achieve. And so there's a mix and there's a challenge in that, in terms of benefiting from being big, while always being very, very thoughtful and committed to that agility. In terms of where media companies are going to go, that you just have to be along for the ride. You have to be willing to make the investments as the marketplace changes. Because you look today, almost anywhere, except for maybe in this auditorium, people are always constantly in touch with their phones and whatever their genuine interests are. And that has disrupted media quite significantly. And it used to be, you could invest in content, you'd present it, you'd create it, and then you'd blast it out to an audience. And if you were fortunate and thoughtful, you'd get a return on that. Now, creative ideas, the useful life is only as long as the consumer that you're engaging with trusts it and thinks that you're serving their needs. And that is just an unknown road. And you have to be committed to it, you have to have the resources, you have to stay focused, and also willing to disrupt yourself. That's key. People get very comfortable, and they get very afraid of change. That constant message of how do we disrupt ourselves before some other genius somewhere comes and does it to us is what's important. So,
Actually, you answered the question that I had, but now this triggered another question. Well, you're a CEO of your own companies too. How are you choosing what to adopt of AI? What is now? What is maybe in the future? Are you starting to have your AI employees in your org charts? How are you approaching this?
Yes, I mean, and very lucky in a number of ways. Because of our size, and because of all the massive investments that are getting made in AI, all those geniuses don't know how they're going to take this technology and turn it into something tangible that they can monetize. Because of our size, they invite us in, and we have very confidential partnerships where we're seeing not the current generation of AI that is being let to the public, but they're engaging us in their next generation and what they're thinking about. And that gives us a bit of a head start in terms of what we see and how it might get applied. The other thing from my company, we know that we can't necessarily compete with them, nor do we try. We know that they're doing that, and we will ingest the fruits of their labor, where we're engaged with every one of the major players today, and we're in a very good position, and there's a lot of trust being built. The next investments for us, and where we're starting to make the investments, is in what do you do with the information once you have it? And I'm currently invested in a few small startups, which I think many of them will prosper, where we're increasingly learning how to predict that consumer's next move. So we know about you, we know what you do, we know what you like, what you don't like, what interests you. What's most interesting, with that information, we know where to reach you, but we don't necessarily know what your next action is going to be. This technology puts us in a position where increasingly we'll be able to lay out the probability that you will purchase a Mercedes, you will purchase a Passat, whatever it is, because we know quite a bit about you, and we know how you respond to certain messages. That's going to be the trick. And that will allow us to really prosper once I get into the performance venue of how companies like mine will be paid. So
I mean, you're so right. One of the greatest points that I had a discussion with Ariane earlier today is how can she leverage your data, not just the typical media consumption and behavior against that, but also one of your companies is Axiom.
Right.
The kind of database that they run as the backbone for credit cards like Visa and MasterCard and many more gives you that opportunity to integrate the data points and make out of it personas that are so precise that can give you predictive advantage on consumer behavior that is probably second to none compared to your competitors. And it's probably an advice to others to partner, because I really think that they're not leveraging the demand in the tourism industry as much as they could. I, for one, can do more with Omnicom through companies beyond just the media buying. On media buying,
yes,
will that stay, media buying, or will agentic AI replace it?
it won't replace it. It'll make it more efficient.
Okay.
It's interesting. I mean, one of the wonderful things about the size that we're able to accomplish is in virtually every market but two will be in clearly a leadership position, which will allow us to engage with the media that's there today, but also engage with new investments and new forms of media that are coming up for the benefit of my company, but more importantly, for the benefit of my clients and the brands that we service. Every transaction, every deal, how we use that size needs to be to the benefit of the client and of the brand. And the differentiation, I mean, if you look at Facebook, you look at Amazon, you look at all the major players, they'll tell you, just simply give me your credit card, we'll tell us what you want to achieve, and we'll go and achieve it for you. Well, that's great, except for when it's not. You're operating and you're gifting your power of choice to them. And if it works, which in most cases it will, you'll be okay. But it won't challenge you in any way. Where we represent the differentiation is we have arrangements with all those people. So we can guide you, help you, partner with you as you select the best venues to accomplish that task. And that's the mission that we're on.
If you were a venture capitalist or an entrepreneur in today's world and want to invest in the media landscape, where would you focus your energy to have the biggest impact?
Sure. Well, I'm a calculated risk taker, and what I mentioned before, all these new emerging startups, and they're happening in all the major universities, of people focused on what to do with the information and the data that is being brought and made easy for everybody to access. Those are the companies which will break through and allow people to use all the great value that AI will bring in a meaningful way. So personally as well as professionally, that's where I'm investing my money. I'm not a VC advisor, so please don't take any of my financial advice. So,
have you participated in any tourism event before?
no, that's why I'm so excited about this. I truly didn't know what to expect, and my expectations was this was going to be a great experience, getting time to spend in the kingdom, but I had no idea because, well, if I had an idea, most tourism conferences or participations really limited to hospitality providers, maybe government ministers, and maybe retailers or others. You've done an amazing thing here because they have to be rather boring, where you've turned it into something exciting by bringing all the entry points. You introduced me to Peter last night, a retailer. Well, when you think of how many people check into a hotel and how they then experience retail, where they go and buy things when they're in a city, the entertainment venues that they go to, where do they want to eat, that you brought all of those public-private groups together. And I think it's a journey, certainly not going to be easily solved, but how do you get a tourist to be allowed to come into your country? How do you get anybody permitted to come into the United States, which is my country, with the current things that we're challenged with and the approaches that we're taking to it? And individuals who are planning a wonderful experience or vacation, they're somewhat limited by the bureaucracy of how do you get the opportunity to experience it. It seems to me that this week you've launched something where you're addressing yourself to all those contact points. And I think that's why you'll own this space. And I think this is just a fantastic venue. So again, congratulations on it. And I was amazed. I really was amazed. I mean, I've had the best time in the few days that I've been here.
Oh.
So.
Well, I would want to clap for all of you for attending
Yes,
and being part of this community. Yeah. And really, it is so true. The convergence of these sectors is what could potentially unlock the biggest challenges and opportunities. And what we saw earlier today, you met Mayor Francis Suarez, Mayor of Miami, and he was telling you about the alliance that came today out of TOURISE with 27 members between mayors, governors, tech companies, mobility companies, and 3 AI-focused companies, not just the Googles. So it was fascinating to all gather around one topic that not a single entity can handle alone, and which was city safety and surveillance. So, and this is going to be the first initiative, and that community, that alliance of destinations, will actually take one chapter after the other, one challenge after the other to address, or an opportunity that each on their own cannot achieve. So thank you for those words, and we're counting on your participation next year, and hopefully we'll induct you earlier into the content so we can do programming in a way that is more meaningful to our stakeholders, because I can see so many opportunities after spending time with you. Mm-hmm. Let's go to more the personal side of you.
Sure.
I read that flexible working hours have given you time to walk your grandson to school. Honestly, that's something I keep struggling with my 2 daughters. But what advice?
Sure. Well, I have I'm sorry.
No, but what advice would you give your grandson and the next generation of future leaders in making them ready for what's ahead of them?
Well, oddly enough, I'm probably one of the few human beings that really benefited from COVID, because it created a situation where my then pregnant daughter-in-law was about to give birth, and they had co-located to get out of the city to a home that had more freedom outside of New York. And I think my grandson was 6 days old before I brought him to my first Omnicom board meeting. And as part of that meeting, he did very well in the compensation committee as well. So he was 6 years old, and I exposed him pretty early what was going on. And what I've always been conscious of, and I acted on it a little bit earlier in my career. I have a son and a daughter. And I was always working, always consumed by whatever the next challenge was, or traveling. And probably around high school, what I did was, and I lived in a town that was very matriarchal. Men went away on Monday. They more or less were around on the weekend, but during the week they were consumed by their jobs. I decided that I was losing touch with them, so I bought a building in my town so I could get up and go to their swim meets or football games and then go back to the office. So that was my first attempt at it. But I promised myself that if I was ever fortunate enough to have grandchildren, I was going to make the time that I didn't provide when I was making my career. And as a result, because of the way COVID and everything worked, and them living with us for a while and then moving back into the city, I basically gave them my apartment in New York, and then I rented another apartment, principally so I could walk my grandchild to preschool every day. And that's what I've done. And it gave me an opportunity that I'll probably never be able to replace. And it doesn't forgive all the things I missed when my kids were growing up, but is really further cemented my relationship with my children. So that is a joy.
Okay, I feel better now about my daughters.
No. When I was your age, I was consumed by where I was going to be and what I was going to do. As you get older, you take a deeper breath and you realize that maybe there's a different way to accomplish the same things. And I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to figure that out. So at least my grandson should remember me anyway, that's at some point. So
well, what would you advise him to be future ready with all the disruption ahead of us?
Sure. You know, it's too far into the future to tell him what career or what to do. Probably the basic principles of always be curious. Always be curious. Don't believe that you know the answer to the question. Stop, pause, and find out what individual you're interfacing with and what they have as needs, what their objectives are. I think I said jokingly, and I don't know if this will come across, but basically we're all chimpanzees, and we all want bananas. And those who are fortunate enough around us get a banana or two, and once we do, what do? We want more bananas. And so that will be the human condition, I think, for quite a while. And with that, with the right principles, with the right structure, and opportunity for education, keeping that curiosity, that interest in learning, interest in what other people are doing, will be the key to guide their careers, I believe. So,
I mean, that's very humbling to hear someone like you talking about staying curious and talk less, listen more, and ask questions. In every question, you learn. And you told me, I have been listening to all the people on the table during the awards last night, and I'm just learning from every conversation.
yeah.
And so, with those wise words, please join me in giving him the best round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
That's great.